Дэвид, вы только что сказали, что вы учились в Петербурге, в Санкт-Петербурге.
Да. But I would rather speak in English.
Okay.
And of course, we were excited to meet you because it's like for us, it's like a dream.
Nightmare.
Not yet.
Yeah. I'll work on it. Yeah. I really forgot everything.
It was so nice when you decided
Yeah.
to Russian.
I know. It was good for the surprise.
Oh, okay.
But really,
It's like entry.
But you know, I am a musician because of Russian music, right? Parents were not interested in music at all. I don't come from a musical family at all. My father was a doctor and my mother was a librarian, and they were my mother was an immigrant to America, and they were very interested in, you know, education, and I was supposed to go to medical school like my father, you know, so I studied chemistry in college because I was supposed to be a doctor. But when I was 9 years old, I saw a movie of a children's concert by the New York Philharmonic with Leonard Bernstein, and he did Shostakovich Symphony No. 1, and he said to everyone in the audience, the little children in the audience, he said, Shostakovich wrote this piece when he was 19 years old and became world famous overnight. And I remember thinking, I have 10 years. I can do that, you know. So I became not just interested in music, but I became interested in Shostakovich and interested in Russia and interested. So I studied Russian. I studied in Russia. I just became completely obsessed with composition, which meant Russian music, which meant Russian language, which meant Russian culture. You know, so that became like a big part of my childhood and a big part of my life. So, and then I spent this summer, I spent 8 weeks in Leningrad. So, when it was still Leningrad.
Yeah.
So in 1975, because I'm very old, yeah. And I studied, you know, Russian language, and I studied, and I traveled around through the country, which was really fun. So.
You were alone there, or?
I was with 7 other Americans.
Oh yeah, in a group.
So with a little group, yeah.
Oh.
So.
And how did you find it?
I loved it. I
Yeah?
thought it was great, yeah. So it was, you know, very, very different and wild, and I really enjoyed it. So, and I came home with 2 giant suitcases full of records.
Oh yeah.
I bought, you know, like all these Melodia.
Vinyl.
Yeah, and they're very heavy.
Yeah.
Much heavier than the records that I was used to. And so these 2 suitcases were so big that they broke on the airplane coming home, and yeah, so it was really ridiculous.
The record survived.
Yeah, they were great, yeah, I still have them. My entrance exam for my doctorate at Yale, I went in to be interviewed by all the composers who taught at Yale, and one of them said, oh, this is the person who knows every piece by Shostakovich.
Bandit. Really. Grandfather there calls him Bandit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks it's like he has some pieces that he loves, like Second Cello Concerto,
Yeah.
like some, and then other pieces make him really angry. So it's
Yeah.
like
Well, I always thought there's always something in a piece of his that I don't like.
yeah.
And I always thought that that those are the things that let you know that the music is authentic, because they're not there because he thinks I want them to be there. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that melody, like why is there that big bassoon solo in that symphony that's so stupid? And you go,
Because
okay,
he
well,
wanted to.
it's not for me because I don't like it.
No.
You know.
We actually just started to work also with the younger generation of American composers like Daniel Wall
And Molly Joyce,
Uh-huh.
she became really inspired by what we are doing. I just sent her
Oh,
some.
all of my students. Yeah, it's fantastic.
We didn't
yeah,
know.
It's really
We
good.
didn't
yeah.
know that they're your students.
Yeah.
I just was listening to some music just randomly. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes I have like.
And my
5
students are great. Yeah. So yeah, that's really good. You are commissioning them. So.
Yeah, we didn't know
yeah.
first of all. So and then I was listening to a few tracks. Yeah, and then I was watching like, okay, in Spotify, who's composer? This was Daniel. I was so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a big chance that I can reach him, but yeah, let's try.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with you. We just sent
Yeah.
an email.
Yeah.
Without expecting there's some, of course, hope is there still.
Yeah.
How important are the honest music and performers in our life?
Well, I think what you get in a piece of music is you get the opportunity to have someone tell you something honestly about what they believe. You have very high standards, and then to be really honest with ourselves about whether or not we did what we wanted to do, like that we actually lived up to our own standards.
Yeah.
So, and I do think that's really hard. So,
And can you hear an honest performer?
I think so, yeah. I think you can, actually.
What is the worst you can imagine happening when you are at the premiere of your work?
Well, I
love to go deep.
I had a performance with the Dutch Radio Orchestra when I was very young, and they had these giant booms with the microphones. And right after the piece started, the boom started going like this because it was, not anchored well, and then it fell over in the middle of the performance.
Oh no.
In the orchestra?
Yeah, in the orchestra. It didn't hit anyone, but it made this gigantic loud noise, and it went out over the radio like that.
Live stream was
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, so
it was amazing.
yeah, it was really where
That's the fun
the
part
action
of
is.
Live performance, right? That's what you said in one of your interviews.
Yeah.
That's why you love to see the live performances more. than
Yeah,
listening.
because things can fall apart. Yeah, and they do, And sometimes perversely, it's like I write a piece of music. If I write for you, you will see it will be really hard, right?
Yes.
And there'll be things that will be, like the point of the piece will be people in the audience watching you going, oh, I can't believe I'm watching people do this. These people are crazy. Why are they doing this, And, but that's something that live performance can offer that recording can't, And so then as a composer, you can take advantage of that. That becomes one of your expressive possibilities.
Yeah. What is your favorite anecdote? Or like fun story?
This is like a really stupid thing, right? This is not such a great anecdote, but as I mentioned, so I was supposed to go to medical school, right? So I went to college. I'm writing music from the age of 9. I spend all my time with music, but I went to college to study chemistry, right? So, and then I switched, and my parents were really mad at me. So my parents were really mad at me, and unfortunately, my mother died before I made a living as a composer. And my father is still alive, thank God. But and he, finally accepts. At the age of 92, he finally accepts that I am now a composer. I can make a little tune, and I can make people whistle it or something. Stockhausen thinks I am a composer, and because of that, I should be able to control the weather. I should be able to change people's temperature. 1,000 miles away. It's like his idea of what you can accomplish with music is insane, but it's huge. And so that's really powerful. Do you know Stimmung? You know this piece? Yeah, Stimmung for 6 voices. This is one of the great pieces of all time. It's really amazing. Stimmung, he went to California in the 60s. He did a lot of drugs, and he had a lot of sex. And then he decided, I am going to write a piece of music for 6 singers. It's going to be, over an hour long, and it's just going to be about people having sex. And so we took these, like sex texts that he wrote, which are very embarrassing, and translated them into all the languages of the world. And then he had people sing these overtone, it's just overtone throat singing for like 70 minutes. And then the texts are these really silly texts, and the piece is really funny and really strange, and it's just one idea that's so beautiful and so joyous and stupid,
Voices.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, this piece. If you can ever see it, if you can see Paul Hillier and Theater of Voices sing it, especially.
Wow.
But it's an amazing piece of music.
What kind of composition process works for you the best, and what is the most important?
well, what's a nice melody? How do I do that? You know, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to sing something to myself, you know. I know some people can do that, but I can't do that. So to me, I have to know what the instruments are doing, what they mean, how they change, what their relationship is, what a piece is aiming for, like how does it actually accomplish something by the end of the piece? How does every step along the way help make that thing become accomplishable? And I have to think about it really hard, you know. So, and then after I know all the details about how something works from start to finish, then I can go, well, now what's that nice little tune that makes that work? My students now are better musicians than people who played 100 years ago, you know. And the general level of musicianship is really high. But are we asking to do something other than what we did 100 years ago? Not really. And I think the important thing is how to be a poet and not how to be a pianist, you know. And so
But that's kind of a problem of society, maybe.
yeah, it is a problem with society, but I really think it's a problem for classical music. At my school, which is a really great school, really one of the best schools in America, it's really incredible. And even in that school, I think it really only hopes that you come out as a player who is good enough to play in an orchestra, along with all the other great players who play in orchestras, you know. So that means there's a lot of your education as a person, which the system has decided is not necessary for you.
What will be your words of wisdom for new generation? It's not necessary to be composers, but maybe musicians, maybe writers, maybe, I don't know, creative minds.
That's a hard question. I think one of the things that's really great about music is that people need other people to do it. You need to find a reason to be together, to make music together, to be in an audience, to listen to music together. It's one of the places where everyone knows why they are there, why they are building something together. I think in the rest of our life, in society, there are not many places where we know that anymore. And so I think when people are playing music, they should remember that this now is an example of how the world could be a better place. And I think that that will make us all better musicians and make us all better people.
Yeah. Yes.
How's that?
Like. Really nice.
Cheese!
It's a special.
It's fantastic. We love cheese.
It's it's a special cheese. They make it since end of 19th century. They make it in the same way in one of the villages in next to the Hague.
That is fantastic.